Hey Gregory, how did you first get involved with yoga
Well,
and way of eating?
way of eating and yoga came really at the same time. I had a great friend in school. His name was Steele Hunter. His father was Tab Hunter. They lived in Pacific Palisades, and we became high school buddies. And I'd spend lots of time at his house. He'd spend lots of time at my house. We'd always have these sleepovers, and something interesting. His mother, Dusty, was magnificent in her striving for health. And the first thing that happened to me with her is she started turning me onto vegetarian diet. And I had learned, I had really been quite liberal with my intake of all sorts of American food and junk food at the time. And I was probably about 180 pounds. And
How old were you?
I was 14, 15, right around there. And I was probably about 180 pounds and 5'8" around there, so I was pretty round. And I started taking the vegetarian diet instruction that she gave me, and really quite quickly, I started to lose weight. And it was towards the beginning of the summer, I remember, and by the end of the summer, I was like really cut. Steele and I would do a lot of body surfing and belly boarding, all up and down the California coast, and on big wave days we'd head down towards the Wedge, which is a well-known surf spot. This is when we got to be 16, and but we did a lot of swimming, so we kept in shape after that. But not only did she saw that she had someone who was interested in that kind of dietary reform, and so she thought she'd go a little farther. And she was at the time dating a man who was the right-hand man of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was the guru for the Beatles. And he traveled around the world teaching transcendental meditation, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And so Charles would
What was his name?
Charles Lutz. And Charles would come over and have dinner with us, and over dinner he would fascinate me. And Steele was interested, but not quite as much as myself, and interested in these stories about the spiritual path and meditation and enlightenment, and then he went into some of the Indian yore of the yugas and the different caste systems and what it meant to find yourself and that kind of thing. I was fascinated by it, and he on Friday nights would give lectures at the it was SRM, Self-Realization Movement, on Butler and Santa Monica Boulevard. And we'd drive down there instead of going to parties and jam sessions, which were available a lot. And sometimes we went, but I think twice a month we'd go down on Friday nights and sit in this beautiful auditorium with gorgeous seating and a wonderful stage, the kind you'd see out of maybe 1940s architecture, where a lot of detail went into these auditoriums where people could come, and they were great. It was great. Anyway, it was a wonderful place. And we'd sit there, and Steele and I would sit in the front row, and Charles Lutz would sit just about 6 feet away from us, and behind us would be an auditorium filled with about 300 people. And right to the left of Charles Lutz was one of those old radiant heaters, the
steel heaters, radiant
heaters, and that's what kept us warm. And in the winter months, this entire auditorium was warmed by these things. And Charles would sit down, and then he'd flip the switch, because he knew that there's a certain amount of white noise that they make, this and the heat expanding and contracting, and your attention would start to go into this calm, restful presence. I was fascinated by it. I loved it. And we'd follow him into deep meditation week after week after week, and hear the lore of the meditator's bliss, from these lectures. So Dusty was magnificent. She turned me on to these things, and she cultured me. She wanted, really what the reason was, is she felt that if Steele and I were absolutely rambunctious during high school. I mean, on the weekends that there wasn't something happening at the SRM, we were out doing something that probably we shouldn't have been doing, like jumping over the fence at SRF, Self-Realization Fellowship, Lake Shrine, which is a place that was founded by Paramahansa Yogananda. And he had this beautiful piece of property right near the beach at the end of Sunset Boulevard. And they had a fence around it, and down at the bottom of the hill was a beautiful little lake where swans swam and lotus flowers bloomed, and there was a waterfall that came off of a little hill next to the lake, with a Krishna standing at the top of it, and it would roll into the lake, and we would often find ourselves climbing over that fence, sliding down the ice plant on the side of the hill, landing ourselves at the mausoleum of Gandhi. There was a whole thing there at the bottom of the hill dedicated to Mahatma Gandhi, where some of his ashes had been laid to rest, and a beautiful arch commemorating his goodwill to the earth. And then we'd take off our clothes and go skinny dipping in the lake.
Where in California was this?
This is in Los Angeles, right in the Pacific Palisades, right near the ocean. So these are the types of things that we were, quite anxious to do in those days. So his mom saw that I had a real interest in the meditation, and knew that the philosophy and the structure of the meditative thought form might help her son and I to find a more constructive lifestyle.
Nice.
And it was. I mean, it was like a really, it really did help me. Instead of going out I realized the benefits of keeping a clear mind, free of drugs and alcohol, and meditation, and finding the truth within. And that was the beginning of the bug of enlightenment that I got. So many hats off to Dusty Hunter and to Steel Hunter for his friendship and his introducing me to his mom, his beautiful mom, and who I found out about 3 years ago from Steel that she passed away from cancer. And it was really, I went through a period of mourning when I found that out. It was...
So she passed away the same time as your mom?
Just about. And it was just about that time. No, it was actually a little earlier, about two years earlier than my mother. So, but there was a sense of mourning and of loss, even though I hadn't seen her for many years. Much of my passion for health, nutrition, and spiritual striving, I guess you can say, finding the truth within, came from her. It was inculcated in me by her sweet words and her ability to be there. There were times when in high school, that time, I'm sure everyone realizes just how difficult it gets at times with relationships and romances and whatever else that happens in high school, and sometimes your heart is broken. And sometimes I would actually go to her home, and without Steele or anyone, and sit there and talk with her, and she would give me advice. And so she became a really great, deep friend of mine. And I, as I say, I attribute much of my striving that continued on, my catching the enlightenment bug. I continued on with the meditation, the hatha yoga, the sessions at the SRM, all through college. And it was a magnificent way of culturing consciousness as well as intellectual abilities. So there you have it, a story about the early years of my spirituality and some of my buddies and friends, and first guru, Dusty Hunter.
Great. Bye.